Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the show. And today I have a very special guest indeed. We are joined by David Howard Thornton. You guys may know him best as Art the Clown in the Terrifier. David, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. As I said, a bit off camera, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out your day to speak to us. We really
Of
appreciate
course.
it.
I'm happy to be here.
So kind of jumping kind of almost straight into it, really. As I said in the intro, you're very well known as, to be honest, a movie that very came out of nowhere in the Terrifier. How has the reception for you been, hearing how much positivity there is around this movie?
It's been pretty good. I can't complain. I mean, we were a very low budget independent film, so for us to have this kind of recognition now has been pretty cool. So I am not complaining one bit at all. I mean, it's gotten me out of having to wait tables for a living. So hey, that's the best thing in the world. I escaped
Um,
hell.
it's something I'm not. I imagine it's kind of like a bit of a rough figure, but is it true that it only cost around $35,000 to produce?
That is true. Yeah. We had a very, very small budget, and it's just it shows the quality of our cast and especially our crew that we were able to pull off what we did. I mean, they utilized every contact they had to find these locations that we could use for cheap or free. Damien did all the practical effects himself, so that saved a whole lot of money. He also did all the editing as well, so that saved money as well. So it's just like, you can make it work when you have to. It's kind of funny when I see these big, huge, 100 million something dollar films, and they're eh. It's just like, money doesn't necessarily make for a good film, but it does help.
Of course, like you said, it definitely gives you more options. But
Yeah.
that's a thing that I love about this movie is just that, as I said, if you kind of know the budget, the amount that you sort of produced for that is just insane.
Yeah.
Um, so sort of first thing I wanted to ask you really is, how did you sort of first hear about the role for Art the Clown, and sort of how did that all come to be?
Well, I originally first heard of Art the Clown because I had seen All Hallows Eve even before they had the auditions for Terrifier, and so I was already familiar with the character and loved the guy. And I was like, oh my god, he's like an evil Mr. Bean. I would love to play him one day. I just never imagined I would get that kind of chance because this is a few years before they even posted this audition. So I was just like, so like they had posted it online and they were looking for a tall, skinny guy that had experience with physical comedy or clowning to play Art. And I'm like, oh my God, that's perfect. I am perfect for this, please. And I never done film work before, so I figured, since this was a low budget independent horror film, I'm like, you know what, who knows if this would even be seen by people. So hey, at least it's experience, and I want to get my foot in the door in the film world, and I can use this for a reel and all that kind of stuff. And it surpassed my wildest expectations.
So with the movie itself, obviously, Art definitely has, there's a lot of makeup to go with the ensemble. How long does it take roughly to get kind of ready to play the role?
When we first started doing the movie, especially in part one, it took about 3 to 4 hours because Damien at first was applying all of it's a giant one piece gelatin mask that he has to glue to my face. And then he would paint it with all the white and everything. And then he would have to let that dry. Then he would paint all the black stuff on top of it. But when we started doing part two, we discovered we could trim a lot of that time off if he just pre-painted the mask white beforehand and just added all the black details after he glued it to my face. So that took about an hour or so off of the whole entire, appliance time. So now we've gotten it down to about, an hour and a half to 2 hours now, which is a lot better. It's a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. That's so I guess almost, you must have spent so many hours just sort of sat there getting all the costume together and the pieces together.
Oh yeah.
Something that I quite liked with this movie is, of course, with Art, you know, he doesn't talk. There are no lines for him in the role.
Yeah.
For you, obviously coming from kind of predominantly a sort of voiceover career, what kind of the differences were? Like, how was that quite an easy transition for you to make, to just do sort of physical rather than verbal?
Yes and no, it was. What was easy about it, I didn't have to memorize any lines, which was wonderful. I could just look over the scene for the day and be like, okay, we're doing this day. Cool. I would come up with ideas in my head and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll just basically improv it the whole entire time. Just, you know, communicate with the director. What do you want me to do right now? Blah blah blah. That's how we would go about it. So that was kind of easy. But at the same time, like as an actor, that's voices have always been my forte. I do over 200 voices and about 25 different dialects. So that's always been my bread and butter, and that's how I usually develop a character. I discover the voice first, and everything else falls in line. Like how he acts, how he walks, everything usually falls in line with the voice. And I didn't have that this time, so I had to rely more on just like my experience just doing physical comedy itself, and my love for great silent film actors or great physical comedians. And I luckily had a great education in all that growing up. My parents and grandparents made sure I was watching like Marx Brothers films and, you know, Charlie Chaplin and all that. I was gifted a probably one of the best gifts anybody ever gave me. When I think of it now, was my aunt for Christmas one year gave me a box set of all the Mr. Bean videos, and I would just sit there and watch those over and over and over and over. And I just love that style of comedy. And I would just sit there and analyze everything Rowan would do with the character, and apply that to characters I played as well, because I love doing physical comedy. I did a lot of children's theater, and children love physical comedy. So I was able to, you know, apply what I was watching growing up to that. So I didn't actually go to school for acting. I learned from just doing. I have a degree in elementary education of all things.
Well, you know, that's so that I guess that's something that I kind of love about these stories, and I've spoke to previous actors as well that have kind of had a similar thing where,
Mhm.
you know, they didn't go to sort of theatre school, but they kind of just fell in love with sort of performing just in general.
Mhm.
um, and you know, and I think that for me it definitely kind of shows, because I feel like, you know, it's a prime example with Art is there's just like it's obviously such a gruesome horror movie. It's kind of like a
Yeah,
homage to the 80s, I feel like, in the 70s.
exactly,
um
exactly.
but he has elements of humor in it, and I think that's what makes him more creepy.
I think so too, because it makes you even ponder yourself, like, why am I laughing at these things? These things are horrible, what he's doing, and yet I'm sitting here chuckling. What does that say about myself? He's got a very dark, dark sense of humor, and I
Mhm,
love that. And I think that adds so much more charisma to the character than your typical silent character that just stabs some guy and moves on to the next thing.
mhm.
You can tell what art is thinking a lot of the time, even though he doesn't talk. He's very expressive, and it adds so much more personality to it.
Absolutely. um so when you got the role, and you knew you sort of booked it and you were preparing to sort of start filming it,
Mhm.
um did you kind of know, sort of, obviously, as we said, there was no script because there were no lines for Arts, but did you kind of know sort of the direction it would be going, and how gruesome and brutal it actually would turn out to be?
Oh yeah, I mean there was a script. I just didn't have to memorize lines, so I knew
Ah,
exactly where the movie is going. It's like, for instance, like when I read the whole hacksaw scene, I was just I imagine, okay, this is just for our benefit to know what he's doing. They're not going to show all this, and Damon's like, oh yeah, we are. We're going to shoot all of that. We're going to show you. sawing through her and everything spilling out, and I'm like, oh my god, that's crazy. I love it. That's gutsy, no pun intended. But it's just like, because you especially this day and age, you don't really see that kind of, gore factor in horror films, especially slashers anymore. Everybody's trying to be more PG-13 than rated R with slashers now, because they're more concerned about younger audiences being able to come in and see the movie as well. They want to put as many butts in the seats as possible, and they don't realize, like, back in when we were growing up, you could still go to rated R movies as a kid. You could go with your older brother or sister or your parents, or you sneak in. So it would always happen. That was never a limiting factor, and I think it's just a bit of the culture we're in now too, where people are a little bit afraid to push the envelope as much now, because there's I hate to talk about, but the whole cancel culture that goes on now is just like, oh, this is too risque, as opposed to, you can't get away with a lot of things that you could, a few years ago. But I mean, I understand some things. I'm like, yeah, let's not do some certain jokes or something like that. I'm like, yeah, but it's like, but when it comes to slashers and stuff like that, hey, you know what you're going in. You're going in there to see gore, so you might as well just show it. You know what you're in for. It's not, you're not getting surprised by anything there. Like, oh my god, they actually showed an intestine. It's like, what, in a slasher? No. Well, I mean, I've even gotten that comment sometimes with people like, oh, Art's a misogynist, and I'm like, he's the bad guy. What do you expect? You want him to be giving his victims flowers and taking them on a date and paying for dinner afterwards or something like that? No, he's the bad guy. This is what makes him a bad guy. It's like
Exactly.
the people that get hung up on those things are like, yeah, you're supposed to hate him. What he's doing is wrong, and this is why he's the bad guy. How that doesn't, equate in people's heads. I mean, I look at him as like, he hates everybody equally.
Mm-hmm.
He just loves to kill people. It's fun for him. It's amusing. He's the anti-clown in that way. Because clowns are supposed to be here to bring joy and happiness to others for other people's amusement. And Art's the opposite. He brings pain and misery to other people for his own amusement. And I think that's so horrible. It's just, but it's so interesting to watch too.
Oh, exactly. And that's as you kind of you mentioned that whilst watching it, I think that's why there is a core fan base for it, and because they definitely pushed boundaries that a lot of franchises are very, very, very against sort of pushing.
Yeah.
And like you said, even when you read the comments, some people that when you go to watch the film, you know what to expect. And it kind of crazy. I think I read a comment, something about, oh, it typifies like just murdering sort of vulnerable women. But when you actually watch it, you realize, well, he actually also did kill, what, 3 or 4 men in this movie as well.
He actually kills more men than women.
Yeah, this is it. The very first 2 opening kills were 2 men, so it just doesn't really balance out. But
and it's not they're necessarily vulnerable women. It's just like they're fighting back, especially Tara's character. And I in a way I felt that's why Art was trying to break her. He was trying to break her mentally. That's why he did what he did with Dawn right in front of her. He's trying to make her just lose her mind and go insane. And he discovered, oh my god, she is too strong-willed. I cannot break her. I'm done playing with her. Bang bang.
Yeah.
He was like, you're not fun anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not that they're weak or anything. It's like, oh my god, no, she was strong. That's a typical horror trope too. It's like, you don't hear about the final guy, you always hear about the final girl. It's because the audience, you want to see the female win. This is like you feel more, I guess there's more empathy you feel towards a female character than a male character in these type of films. You don't want to see horrible things happen to them. You want to see them triumph over this ultimate evil. And I think that gets lost on people, that's why you typically have these female characters in these films, because that's who you want to see triumph. It's one, yeah. It's great to watch an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or something like that, and he, everybody down, and he wins at the end. But it's like you go back, you watch Aliens, Ellen Ripley is like one of my favorite characters. Is also one of Damien's favorite characters ever from cinema. I mean, she is such a badass character, and she's not relying on other people to make her, like, especially like another guy to complete her. That's not her thing. She totally passes the Bechdel test in every way, and I love to see those type of characters. And in part two, we definitely bring in a strong female lead into this one, like Lauren Laverne, who plays Sienna in this. Oh my god, I was like, just Lauren herself in real life is just an amazing, crazy, strong-willed woman. She has different black belts and different forms of martial arts. She teaches kickboxing. She's very headstrong, independent woman in real life. And so are basically every single woman we've hired for both films has been that way. I love it. And this character that Damien created for part two is just, she goes on that whole hero's journey, the classical hero's journey, where she becomes this badass by the end of the film. Like when she and Art finally go head to head with each other, it's, boy. I love it. I can't wait for people to see this, and we're so happy to bring this character to life. We're hoping she's going to inspire so many more girls one day to be like, yes, this is the kind of person I want to grow up to be. Sienna over here, she's awesome.
For sure. So touching on of Terrifier 2, obviously, which I believe is at the post-production phases.
Yes.
So how, for yourselves, how has it felt knowing the big reception that it's had? When I remember when it was announced that there would be a Terrifier 2, and I just couldn't, every post on every horror group that I saw was just about like ready to see this movie.
Yes.
For you guys, how has it been, like the reception from people?
Oh, it's been great. We were so, stoked. It's what sucked is the stupid pandemic slowed everything down. It's just like, we wanted to originally release it like late 2020, maybe early 2021, and then the pandemic happened and just, everything goes to crap over that. But the whole entire time, the fan base has been so gung ho about it. I mean, I get messages daily still. When's part two coming out? When's part two coming out? When's part two coming out? I'm like, guys, I love it. I love the enthusiasm for it, but I'll post. Don't worry. You'll know when it's coming out. It's coming out by Halloween this year. Come hell or high water, we're going to release it some shape or form. So, because we're so excited for everybody to see this film. So we made this for the fans. I mean, it's basically funded by the fans as well. So this is such a love letter to our fan base, and we love seeing the excitement everybody has for this film. And it's just knowing what we have in this film. Y'all don't know what's in this film yet, but we know what's in this film and how crazy and fun it is. And we can't wait to release it for you guys and just see how you all respond to it. It's exciting. I'm like, yeah, hurry up, let's release this thing. I want it released now. It's just, it's having to go through the whole rigmarole of, getting distribution behind it. That's what we're dealing with right now, is, trying to square all that stuff away. And that's beyond my control. So I've done my part. I just sit here and just kind of like, come on. Someone pick us up. Don't you want to make money? This will make money, I guarantee.
Oh, absolutely. I haven't seen, especially for the the budget, obviously, not or not even just like one of the major franchises, especially as of recent, with all these key franchises coming back. This has to be the most hyped movie I have seen kind of put out there, especially over the last year.
Yeah, it's insane, especially considering who else we're up against, like Mike Myers and Chucky and Scream, and I'm like, my God, we're up against the greats, and people are just as stoked for us as they are seeing the next Halloween movie, which I'm just like, that blows our minds. Like it's very, strange being considered to be on the same level as those icons already. It's we get that a lot at the conventions now, where
Yeah.
we see so much art, like merchandise and everything. Not even our merchandise that we've officially made, but all the vendors that all these artists have done paintings, and all, or someone's done a knife and they've done all, like, decorated the knife to look like art and stuff. Like, I'm like, that's, and you see that, on display right next to Freddy Krueger and Jason and Mike Myers, and we're sometimes outselling them. I'm like, this is insane. It's crazy. We're so grateful, for that. It's just the tattoos. Oh my God, the amount of tattoos. Holy crap. It blows my mind that people want my face on their body for the rest of their life. I'm like, I don't even want my face on my body for the rest of my life. Like, looking in the mirror sometimes, I'm like, oh no. Oh no. Can't I just do a whole Nicolas Cage, John Travolta type face swap?
No, for sure. I think, when I see, obviously, Art the Clown merchandise plastered everywhere, he's definitely cemented a staple in these sort of horror characters. I think when
Mhm.
you think of these iconic horror characters now, Art the Clown for sure is up there. And I just can't imagine, especially for yourself, like how that must feel to know that's where he is at. Like it's pretty
It's
set.
insane. I've even walked around here in where I live in New York City, and occasionally I'll see someone with a Terrifier shirt on. I'm like, holy crap! It's like, but it's me. I mean, I'm used to seeing it at conventions, but when I'm just out in day-to-day life and I see someone wearing
Mhm.
a Terrifier shirt, I'm just like, wow, that's fantastic. That's, oh my gosh. I have to resist the urge just to go running up to him, going, oh my God, thank you. Because I don't want to scare them, especially here in New York, because people, you don't want people just running up to you here in New York City. That's a way to get shot.
So obviously, I know we can't talk too much about Terrifier 2, but on either set of the movies, what was it like on the set whilst filming?
Oh gosh, we had a lot of fun. And I think we had to do that because a lot of the locations we were filming in were not the most fun locations to film in. Both films, we because we filmed during the winter here in New York, which is cold. It gets so cold, and a lot of the locations we were filming in didn't really have good heat. And I mean, I know I was cold, but I look at what my co-stars were sometimes having to wear. Like poor Catherine, when we did the hacksaw scene, it was 20 degrees that night. There was no heat in there, and she's having to do that naked. I'm like, and covered in blood, which makes it even colder for her. And I'm like, oh my God, that's miserable. And poor Lauren Lavera in part two, with the costume she wears for Sienna for a good chunk of the film, this very skimpy Valkyrie costume. It looks amazing. But oh my God, that thing was a pain in the ass. And like, it was cold for her to wear, but also it was always falling apart. And we're always having to make, all alterations to it and everything. So that thing was a pain. So to, compensate for all this craziness that was going on, we had a lot of fun. There was so much joking around on this set, and we're it's a small crew, so everybody gets to know each other very well. Everybody bonds during this whole entire thing. So it's like, I think at some point everybody had some kind of mental breakdown when it's like you're going on 3 days of shooting, like 16 plus hours a day, and you're going off with no sleep, and it's cold and everything, and then someone just snaps for a second. Everybody's like, it's okay. Everybody has their moments. It's like, I'm sorry, I was a jerk. Like, no, you're just tired. We all need a nap. But that's the thing, is we've become family, and we have fun with each other. And I'm like, you wouldn't expect, all this crazy fun joking around to go on a horror set where we're doing horrible things. But it's like, as soon as they say cut, we're cracking jokes, and goofing around. It's just like, or sometimes even they're filming, so they're not doing. You don't hear. They're not running audio, so I can just make commentary while I'm doing stuff. I'll have my hands or something like that in intestines or some kind of gross thing, and I'm just going, oh god, oh that's a gross, why? And no one knows. They just see my hands in the shot, so I'm making jokes about it and everything. They're making jokes at me, making fun of me while I'm doing it. It's just like it's we have fun.
You have to have fun, you know. That's the whole point of like going into
Yeah,
something that you love, right? I mean,
yeah,
if you're not having fun, then I think it could definitely show, and
yeah.
I think you could tell that obviously you guys were really well bonded and having a good time, because the movie just came out incredible.
Oh yeah.
um so obviously, as I said, I know we can't talk too much about Terrifier 2.
Hmm.
But if you could kind of summarize briefly about what people could like expect, and sort of to drag people in to come and see Terrifier 2.
I would say expect the first film, but on steroids. It's just like
Good
I like to
God.
call it, yeah, I like to call it T2 because there was another other famous T2 that came out in the early 90s that, it's like Terminator 1 was a fantastic film. But Terminator 2 took things to a different level. And that's how I look at Terrifier 2. It just it we looked at all the the positive and negative comments we got about the first film, and we took them to heart. Okay, so the audience liked this. They didn't like this. Okay, so let's fix this, but also keep this and build upon that. And so that's what we did. I mean, especially the biggest criticism we got was character development or story in the first film. It was a very bare bones survival story. It's cat and mouse game. That's what it was. We knew that, and so we're like, okay, well, let's add more because now we have to world build now. So we've really expanded the story a lot more in part two, especially this whole thing with we address the fact that there is something supernatural going on with art. Yeah, it's like he came back from the dead at the very end of the film. So we
Mm.
fully address that from the first minute of the film. There's something supernatural going on with him, and this plays into the whole entire film. And this is kind of almost like a horror fantasy type of film in some ways, with it, but set in modern times. And so we have that, especially we do a lot of world building with Sienna and her family. It's because this is where you don't have the typical happy family situation with Sienna's family. It's like it's a very real family. They have their arguments, they have their disagreements, and you see how this makes this character much stronger during the course of the film. And and art interjects into all of that and causes all kinds of chaos. And to that I would say art is just as much a part of this film as Sienna. So he's not getting the short shift. He's not just appearing in 15 minutes of it. That's it. He's front and center, just like Sienna. It's that they equally share this film, which is I think is great because we have established art. Now we have to establish the Batman to his Joker, and that is Sienna. So we're doing that. Also the gore. Whew. We took that as a personal challenge to try to beat the hacksaw scene from the first film. It's like, what can we do? Because we know now that's such an iconic scene. What can we do to top that? And the shock factor. And I think we have a few scenes in this that will definitely, at least equal that in the viciousness and the shock factor. But there's one scene in particular. We might have pushed it too far. It's just like, it's like Damien showed his mom the film recently, the whole entire film, and she's like, I don't know who you are anymore. Especially this scene. I mean, we start, and it's a weird thing that the pandemic kind of lended, like actually helped this scene because we started filming it right before we had to go in lockdown here in New York. And then the lockdown happened, and we're like, oh crap, we still have to finish this scene. Well, Damien's like, well, we have time now. Because we took a break from the scene so he could build the prosthetics needed for it. He's like, well, I have that time now to build the prosthetics. So hey, why don't I just go back to the drawing board and even go further with this scene than we originally planned? I have more ideas for what we could do with this kill scene. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's what we did. So what was supposed to take maybe 2 or 3 days to film ended up taking almost a week to film, because there are just so many practical elements that he built for this scene. And it's basically art just destroying someone for about 5 or 6 minutes. It's just, and it's, people are going to call it torture porn probably. It's
Oh,
brutal. It is a brutal scene. We are going to get hate for it. I guarantee people are going to be like, how, that's just gross. That's horrible what you did to this person. But I'm like, that's horror. And we want to bring that to this. We're hoping with the kind of kill scenes we're doing with these films, we're hoping to inspire other filmmakers to start bringing horror back to horror again, instead of just the campy one-shot kills and stuff like that, and bring back the practical elements, because that's what we did with all these kill scenes. We did as much practical effects as possible. We might have had to do a little bit of CG here or there with things that there was no way we could done that practically, but that's very, very, very minute. I mean, there's
mhm.
this one thing that Damien built that people are going to swear that's CG. And I'm like, no, that's an actual thing he built. And like when I walked in set that day and saw this thing, and all of a sudden it moved. I was like, Jesus. I was like, that's wow. That's gonna just disturb some people. It's
Wow.
so we're excited for people to go. We've shown a few people the same, because Damien likes to get people's feedback. He wants to know if it's working or not before he puts it out there for everybody. And we showed it to one person in particular who is a huge horror person. She does all these interviews with celebrities at all these conventions and everything. She knows her stuff. So we figured, if anybody could give us really good feedback for this scene, it's going to be Heather. And we showed her the scene, and she just starts crying halfway through it. Not sadness, but just tears of joy. And then she went
Wow.
online afterwards and just wrote this whole entire thing on Facebook. Like, I can't tell you what I saw, but oh my gosh, you guys have done something that hasn't been done in a horror film in a long time. And it's vicious and brutal, but we're hoping it's going to put some fire under a lot of filmmakers' butts to, hey, let's get back to this again. Let's quit doing the sugar-coated, half-assed slasher films. Let's do these kind of kills again, and let's bring these characters back, and like the very charismatic, fun characters that people love and gravitate towards. I was like, because we really haven't had those kind of characters, especially for a villain, in a while. And we're hoping that this is what's gonna really just start a new age of horror films.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's something that we need. We need people to come back with originality and just
Mm-hmm.
to do, not to be afraid to do what they want to do in a film, and
Yeah.
not to try and overthink, who's it going to upset, who's it not. And
Yeah.
my perspective on Terrifier 2 is, if you're going to go into Terrifier 2 almost, and think it's not going to be what you expect,
Mm-hmm.
you really shouldn't be watching horror movies, honestly, because
Yeah, exactly.
no, that's it. I mean, as you said, that there are too many, you know all the major, to me it's a little bit controversial. I mean, I do love the
Mm-hmm.
major franchises, but
Oh, me too.
they're all very, a lot of the kills in some of the movies are very samey, and there
Yeah.
isn't this brand new, we don't care what necessarily people think, we're just going to go out and do what we want to do, and
Yeah.
people will either like it or not. And that's something I
That's
commend you all for.
that's exactly what's been great about this scene. I think that's what I hate saying this, because this is my industry, but I feel like the Hollywood engine, the big studio scene, is the ones that are killing the creativity. because they just care about the
100%.
money. There's like, well, we know this formula works, so just keep pumping this type of film out. Just do this stuff. Don't try anything new, because we don't know how people are going to respond to that. So let's play it safe. We know this is going to make us money, so we'll keep just doing this. And so they've desaturated a lot of these films because they've neutered horror films, I feel like. And that's what's been great being an independent film. And you see this with a lot of other independent films. You have that freedom. You don't have a studio coming in and saying, no, that's too much. Can't do that. You have to do this, and this. We don't have that. If we want to do something, we just do it. And we have fun, because it gives us the freedom. And when you have that freedom, that's when you can get more creative with things. And we have those moments, not just where it's planned out. We have had moments on set where something goes wrong and we come up with a whole new scene. It's like on the spot. We had a great example where this is not going to spoil really anything. There was a scene where I was supposed to just come crashing through a window in part 2, like you see in so many films. So, and that doesn't ruin what happens later on anyway. But the glass that we had bought that we were going to install, when it had arrived, we opened the box and the glass was broken. And there was no way we could have gotten another thing of glass for this in time to be able to film the scene. So we're like, oh God, this is necessary. We what are we going to do to get around this? And we came up with this whole entire alternate version of what we were going to film using the broken glass instead. And it inspired this whole entire little scene that wasn't in the script at all, and we just filmed it just off the cuff right there that night. And I it's one of my favorite little bits in the film, because I'm like, this is something you've never seen in a horror film before that the villain does. And I think it's hysterical, but so creepy at the same time. I think it's so much more effective in the scary creeping factor than him just bashing through a window. And this would never have happened if that glass had not broken. And who knows, if we had had a studio there, they would have changed the whole entire thing anyway, made us. So it's like it's just these type of moments that inspire creativity, and that's what's great about working with Damien. He's one of those directors that's willing to hear other ideas, not just from me, but other actors, and also sometimes the crew members have an idea for something, and we're like, hey, let's try it, because all of us want to make the best film possible. So we're open to other ideas. You got to put the ego aside sometimes. And we'll film alternate scenes, alternate versions of the scene, that we're doing, to see what works best. And that's what I love about it. We're able to be as creative as we want to be, because we have that kind of freedom with being an independent film. And it's like, yeah, it would be great to have the money that a big studio could give us. Mm-hmm. But we have the freedom, and I think that's what really translates better on screen, is when you can tell that we've had the freedom to do what we want to do.
Yeah, that's it. And it's so great that, obviously, like yourself and Damien, you're taking other people's ideas, and because your ultimate goal is just to make a great movie. Of course, you'd love to make money. Everyone wants to make good money. But for me, I just feel, especially from what you're saying, and from what I've also seen on previous interviews with other people, is you just care about a great movie that people love more than anything else. And I think, again, that's why I think people connect with you guys the most.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's just like it's not just us. You see that with other films that come out. You can tell when there's love behind it. There's love for the source material, and the people that are making it love that genre. I mean, I look at like things that James Gunn does. You can tell he loves that genre. He loves superheroes, and he's got such a great sense of humor, and he brings all that to it. And you can tell that cast and crew is having fun. on set. Same thing with Taika Waititi. You can tell he loves what he's doing, and it translates. It translates so well.
Absolutely. So something that I also noticed, I attend a lot of conventions, I get to meet a lot of horror actors or celebrities in general. But I noticed just there's one in particular you've been announced for in the UK for The Love of Horror in Manchester, which I have
Yes.
tickets for, and I'm very excited. So for you, what is your general experience with these conventions and meeting the fans and like-minded people?
Oh gosh, I love them. I mean, even before I was on this side, I used to go to conventions as a fan myself, and so I already had that love and appreciation for it. I'm a huge geek. I'm like I look at I always have to, when I'm at the conventions, I always have to do laps throughout the, because I want to see all the stuff that the vendors have, and I'm like, oh man, if I had more space, I would be buying so much stuff. I love geek culture. I love films. I love video games. I love cartoons. I love, that's my thing. So conventions are my jam. I love it. I love being able to meet the other celebrities that I grew up watching. Now I've got to know them as people, as colleagues now, which is blows my mind, being on first name basis with these people, being friends with them. It's like, well, this is cool. But what's even more fun is just hanging out with the fans. And there's a different thing I've noticed with horror conventions versus just the general fan conventions. There's a closeness with the horror conventions, with that community there. There's this, not just with the fans themselves, but between the fans and the celebrities. There's a bond there. That's because I don't know how to really explain unless you've been there, but there's
Yeah.
this camaraderie, there's this mutual respect that everybody has in each other. And I like Damien, I love to just hang out with everybody. We've made so many, friends from these things, and we've brought some of the fans into helping on Terrifier 2 as well. We've met them through the conventions. We're like, hey, our guy that now does most of our merchandise, work, we met him at a convention, and he ended up being our PA on part 2, and now it's just those things. We've made so many friends because we hang out with everybody. We don't just go back to our hotel room at the end of
Yeah.
the day and just hang out. We go and hang out at the after parties and get drinks with everybody, because we have an appreciation for the fans, because we understand it is the fans that got us where we are. Plus, we all like the same things. So it's just like, hey, it's just like, this is great. Let's hang out and chat about movies and stuff like that. I'm like, my God, I'm such a film, but my God, Damien is the biggest film geek. That's how Damien and I bonded on set, was we would just talk about movies the whole entire time he's doing my makeup. And so if you start talking movies to Damien, at conventions, he will talk your ear off. And oh my God, we have fun. We just have fun. I love doing these things. So I'm so stoked about finally coming out to Manchester, because I've never been to England. I've always wanted to come out to England, and now I finally get to. I'm like, yay. Hopefully I get to go out there a lot more often than just this too, because it's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I have tickets for The Love of Horror. I have attended their events before, and you are going to have the greatest time. Like it's honestly my favorite events I've ever been to. Just the way those guys run it, and also just the fans. It's always the same people that kind of go, and like
Yeah.
you said, because everyone has this mutual love for this one thing, that's why there's this great like chemistry, as you said, between the guests and the attendees, and it's going to be great, and it'll be cool to finally meet you as well.
Oh yeah. Well, what I love about too is it's such an accepting fan culture too, because you see people from all walks of life, people that you in normal everyday life, you look at this person, you're like, that guy's scary looking. But then you're like, oh my God, no, he's just a big geek. He just loves horror and stuff like that. But then you have other people that have the Wall Street type look to them. You have your jocks, you have your nerds, you have little cross section, and everybody bonds together over this love of horror. No pun. Oh my God, for the love of horror. But that's it's so true. That's what it is. It's brought so many different groups of people from different religions and ideologies and all that together, and it's a great little pocket of fan culture. It's fun.
So in events or conventions you've attended in the past, do you have any kind of standout moments that always kind of sort of stick in your brain the most?
Oh gosh, I think one of mine was the first time I saw someone just is at our very first convention. Someone cosplayed as art, because I used to do cosplay as Joker a lot. So I love cosplay. I'm always thrilled to see all the different cosplayers at these things, and seeing someone cosplay as art was amazing for me. And I see it all the time now, and it still doesn't get old. It makes me so happy to see people cosplaying as art. And some people get really creative with it. They just don't do the typical art. I've seen gender bent arts. I've seen very creative costumes that people done. I love steampunk art. One time I was like, this is awesome. So I love that. I mean, I've signed a few tattoos, and they've had the signature tattooed on them as well. I'm like, this is nuts. I mean, of course, there have been some celebrities I've met at some of these that have just blown my mind. Like, I mean, he's basically become a friend now. Alice Cooper is just like, oh my God. It's like, because my manager also is his manager. So I walked in, like, Alice is so used to seeing me. I walked into dinner one night, and he looks up and goes, oh, here comes trouble. I'm like, it's like, wow, Alice Cooper knows me now. This is crazy. It's like, or when I met Christopher Lloyd, and like I was getting my makeup ready for the photo op, and he comes in, he's just like, oh my God. He's just, that's fantastic. It is like bringing a smile to his face just made my year, because I'm like, he's such a big part of why I love movies. He's in so many of my favorite movies of all time, especially Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Back to the Future. So to bring some joy to him is just amazing. And he is just the sweetest man. I was able to sit down and chat with him for a while. So having those kind of experiences is really great as well.
It's amazing, that it's those kind of stories that I think it's what people love to hear, right? And so if you could give, whether it's an actor, whether it's a director or musician or whatever path somebody decides to pursue, if you could give them like one piece of advice, what would that be?
Persistence. It's all about persistence, because especially any avenue you basically pursue in the arts is going to be a hard avenue to pursue, because it's not your typical 9 to 5 job, and it's in working in the arts with dance, music, bands, theater, all of that. You're putting yourself on the line every single time you go to an audition or an interview or something like that, because that's part of you. And so it can be crushing at times to be told no. And I've been told no so many more times than I've been told yes. But it's that one yes that can change everything. Like that one yes I got for Terrifier changed my life. And I was waiting tables for 13 years here in New York City, doing side acting jobs, and just trying to make ends meet. And this came along, but I just knew, because I kept on getting so close with things. Right before Terrifier, I was up for 4 or 5 different Broadway tours, and I was in the final callbacks. Every single one of those fell through. One of them literally came down to a flip of a coin between me and another actor. And I was just like, I'm so close. And I was like, I'm just going to keep on. I'm going to keep on. I'm going to keep on. And then Terrifier happened, changed everything. And if I had gotten in any of those, I wouldn't have been able to audition for Terrifier, and I wouldn't have been able to film Terrifier. So it worked out the best way. So you just got to keep on putting yourself out there, but also keep learning the whole entire time you're doing it. There's always something more to learn. I'm still learning things. I learn something from every single actor I'm on set with. I'm always watching their performances and putting things in my head. I like what they did here. I like how they approached the same. Okay, I can learn this. I can learn this. Always take these opportunities to learn. Even those moments of rejection, there's something to learn from them. Why didn't you get it this time? And sometimes it could have just because your audition, you messed up your audition, or sometimes it comes down to things you have no control over. You might look too much like someone the director used to date. You just don't know, or it comes down to a flip of a coin. You don't know. So don't take things personally or too personally, because if you love what you're doing, it's worth it, because this is a career. If you can actually get work in it, it's so fulfilling. It's like the feeling of bringing joy and laughter to an audience is something you can't get anywhere else. Any other type of job, you don't get that feeling working at McDonald's. You don't get that feeling when you make a sale at a car dealership or anything like that. But like you get that from working in the arts. It's there's other trade-offs than just a huge paycheck. If you're in it for the paycheck, you're in it for the wrong reason. It's just like, if you love it, keep at it.
I love that, and I think this is something that I, having the absolute honor of being able to speak to people like you, this is why I love doing this. My goal and my hope is that somebody maybe like catches this interview, and like those kind of words might make them think, do you know what, I'm gonna do what I can, and I'm gonna go for the things that I love in life. So I just want to thank you for those words. I think that's amazing.
It's the most valuable lesson I learned, because like I said earlier, I have a degree in elementary education because I was trying to be at first pragmatic with my life. I love doing theater, but I was like, might not be able to put bread on the table all the time with that career path. But teaching, I have a steady paycheck, blah, blah, blah. But I lost my mom when I was in college. And that was our final conversation with each other, because she said, I have a lot of regrets with my life, things I never tried doing. But it's like, I don't want you to go down that same path as me. I don't want you to have those regrets. You've been given certain gifts that it would be a shame to waste. So don't do what you think you have to do with your life. Do what you want to do with your life. And it took me about a year, and I was in my internship in the schools, and I was doing story time with my children. I was doing little funny voices, and they were laughing and having fun. And it's clicked with me. I was going through a difficult time, but I was like, this brings me joy. This fulfills me, is to bring laughter to these children and to entertain them in this way. I was like, this is my calling. I'm not supposed to be a teacher. I'm supposed to be an entertainer. Because I even did that with my mom. As sick as she was for those 2 years she had cancer, I would still try to lift her spirits and entertain her and crack jokes and whatever, just to bring her out of that funk that she was in and that I was in, because it was therapeutic for me. I mean, theater saved me. Like I was very depressed those years, but when I was able to go and rehearse a show for a few hours, I was able to escape the things that were bringing me down in life, and I was able to play someone else. And then when I was in front of an audience, I was able to make people laugh and have fun with that, and it was very therapeutic for me. And that's why this is why I have to do with my life, because if I can do that for myself, I can also do that for other people, and I can help people escape misery. And there was this one moment when I was on tour with How the Grinch Stole Christmas. We did a performance in Cincinnati, and we got this letter from this man, and he said, it was about a week or so after we were there, and he's like, I just want to thank you for what you guys did for you. We probably never met or anything like that, but he's like, my wife has been, in the final stages of cancer, and she wanted to go see the production of Grinch. And he's like, okay, we'll do this. And he said for those 2 hours, he was able to see his wife the way she used to be. It brought what we were able to do for her in that show, that we brought her back to life. She became herself again. She was having fun. She was laughing and all that. And then she passed away a few days afterwards. And he was like, thank you for giving, and this is right before Christmas too. And he was like, thank you for giving me one last night with my wife as she was. And thank you for, giving her one last gift of joy and amusement and love before she left us. And that was one of those things where I realized, like, this is why we do what we do. We're not just doing this for ourselves. We're doing it for other people, because you never know how the arts, not just theater, but, music and dance and all of that, what kind of effect that can have on other people in their own personal life. It can help them deal with things that they've been dealing with, their struggles as well.
Exactly, that's it. It's not just life changing. It's things that it's incredible how, as I said, whether it's the arts, theatre, or even music, they're always kind of, whenever you're in like a tough time in life, whether you're struggling mentally or whether you're physically sick, they're always the things you turn to. And I do genuinely believe, whether people believe it or not, that there is some sort of like it's a healing process, right? Like, I feel like it's one of the most natural ways to heal a situation that you're put in, and it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, you even see that during wartime, on the battlefields, where soldiers would just start singing songs. Someone bring out a guitar or something like that. Those things that would just help heal in horrible times.
That's exactly it. So going back to your sort of up and coming projects,
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's another project you have coming up as well. Is it called Stream?
Yes, it is. It's called Stream, not Scream. They sound so much alike, but it's totally different. But yeah, it's with a lot of the Terrifier 2 crew, the Fuzz on the Lens guys, Mike Levy and his brother Jason, and their friend Steve Dalcella. They have their own film company, and they were in part one. Mike was the exterminator I decapitated, and Jason and Steve were the cops that come in at the very end. We met them during that, but they have written what they are hoping is going to be another horror slasher franchise called Stream, where it takes place in a hotel that goes on lockdown with all these killers on the loose in the hotel. It's crazy fun film. Damien's doing all the practical effects for it, so the kills are gnarly. And we have a lot of horror legends in it. It's been amazing to be working on this. I mean, we have Dee Wallace, Danielle Harris, Jeffrey Combs, Tony Todd, Felissa Rose, Dave Sheridan, Terry Alexander, Daniel Roebuck, Mark Holton, just all of these amazing actors. It's been nuts being on set with all of it. I cannot believe I'm doing a film with all these people that I grew up watching in movies for so long. This is amazing. And we had fun. We're filming this during the pandemic. We've still got a little bit more to do, because they just did a Indiegogo campaign, because they decided to put one extra scene into this movie, another kill scene. So I have no idea what's being involved with this. But so I have like maybe one more day to film, but it's been a lot of fun. I can't wait for people to see this, but we got to release Terrifier 2 first, and then we'll release Stream. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. As I said, when I saw that was coming up in your sort of it says post-production on your like especially IMDb page, and obviously I wasn't familiar with the movie, I'll be honest. And then when I clicked it and I read the description about it, and I was like, oh, okay, it's enticing. And as soon as I saw that lineup, I just like that is also going to be another movie you're in that you just can't afford to miss.
No. It's kind of cool that and we did all this during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's like we basically for stream, it was before the vaccines came out, and we basically just quarantined ourselves in a hotel for about a month and a half in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and filmed. And it was fun. We all kind of you know, since I wasn't always having to be on set, I would come and go, but so it's like you just see different actors coming through on different days to film and stuff like that. But most of the crew was there the whole entire time, and so they were camped out for months. It was fun. The funny thing was too, they sometimes didn't tell people we were filming in the hotel, the other guests that were staying there. And I had an experience one night where I almost got shot because I'm stalking we have like these scary lights set up in the hallway, and I'm stalking my victim through the halls. I'm covered in blood and everything like this, and we keep doing take after take after take, you know, as you do. And all of a sudden, this woman comes out of her room, is like, "Whatever you're doing is very effective. You almost got shot because we are Second Amendmenters." Oh my God. And she had a gun in her hand. I'm like, oh my gosh. She was behind the door with a gun, and she actually filmed me through the peephole of the door. And so she showed us the footage. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see why she thought this was like, I understand why she had her gun out. I'm like, yeah, that's scary when you don't realize they're filming a movie. I'm like, why didn't they tell these people we're filming a horror movie?
I kind of feel like maybe that was the reason why they wanted to see some people's reactions.
Oh my God, they wanted to get us killed. That's what it was. Oh my gosh, that was insane. I'm like, oh, I felt so sorry. I was like, I am so sorry. I'm not this guy. That's just my character. I'm a big teddy bear. You have nothing to fear from me.
That's amazing. I honestly can't wait to see both Terrifier 2 and Stream. Do you want to say any sort of social medias that you have so people can kind of follow you and keep up to date?
Yeah, I'm on both Facebook and Instagram under David Howard Thornton, and I also have a Cameo and a memo page as well, where you can, if you want me to do some like little video for a birthday or something like that, find me on there. I don't charge nearly as much as everybody else because I don't want people going broke over me. So I'm like, so yeah, but that's how you can find me.
Yeah, amazing. And I will have to say, obviously, somebody that follows your social medias, it's so cool. I think I remember when you said about the conventions, and I've seen when you've sort of done you've sort of come as art, and other people have come as art, and some of those pictures are so great.
Oh, I love it. I have fun at the photo ops. Because I when I do my photo ops, I do it fully in character. As soon as I leave the makeup room, I am in character as art. I don't talk or anything like that. So I have fun playing around with people. I sometimes just sneak up behind people, scare them and stuff like that, and point and laugh at them, make fun of them. It's just like you can get away with so much. And I have fun during the photo op sessions as well. I love it when people come with their own ideas, things they want to do. Because I don't want to do the typical point that guy thing that so many celebrities do. I'm like, God, why? It's so boring and cliche. I'm like, you look so miserable to them. Hey. No, have fun with it. Have fun with it.
Yeah, that's it. And what I'll do as well is I'll kind of go through, and I'll attach links to all the conventions to date that you announced for that, so people could come and whether they want to come meet you, get photos, autographs, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You know, David, thank you so much for taking your time out your day to talk to me. It's one of the most surreal things ever. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I had a great time chatting with you too. I hope you had fun as well.
Oh, it's going to be one of those things that it's going to stick with me for such a long time. So thank you.
Well, thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you.